Hello, this is Mr. Jarrett, and in this video tutorial, we're going to be working in Adobe Illustrator to learn a bit about the 3D Materials tool panel. So this first section up here, I kind of just made you a little bit of kind of a layout with some rectangles, and I have labels here saying extrude, revolve, and inflate options. So these are different options that you're going to have with materials. So this is just scratching the surface. There's so many cool things that you can do with the 3D material, and I honestly have not learned all of them in depth. I just found some of these skills, these settings that I found off of tutorials that I watched myself online. So first, let's do Window, drop down, and select 3D and Materials. Pull this bar over to the side, and you can see here it says for the different 3D types, there's plane, revolve, and inflate. There's also some extra options up here like object, materials, and lighting. So first off, I'm going to select this rectangle over here, and I'm going to select it. And you can see this is going to rotate this based on the X, Y, and Z. You can also change the perspective. There's custom rotate. There's different ones here. If you've ever taken any of my 3D modeling classes, you might know that word isometric, that three-dimensional view. And you can see the different settings that it has. But this is creating kind of an option. There are a lot of cool tutorials that I've saw with this, but this is just the basics of what it be used for. So the next one here that we're going to select is going to be extrude. This is going to be something that it's going to be a little bit of more of a wow factor. So with that simple rectangle selected, I'm going to hit it, and that instantly gives me all of this depth. It adds some shadows and shading and three-dimensional. You can see just by changing this, you can get some different depth to it. So I'm not going to do large here. There's some twist, which is really cool. You can make this thing twist and turn. Again, this just went from a square here a couple seconds ago to making this look like it's a dimensional twisted shape, which is awesome. You can actually taper this as well so that it kind of goes back to it if you really want. You can do different caps and things like that. You can make some bevels on here so that it has some chamfered edges, some squared off or angled edges. You can change the width and the height of all of this. I mean, there's so many cool things that you can do with this extrude. You can also change its rotation of which way you want this thing to go. You thought this was a flat 2D drawing program. It is for the most part, but you can do some stuff here with the different 3D customizing options within the extrude itself. So next, let's go over to the revolve. So I'm going to select this. If you don't know what that means, revolve means to wrap around a single axis point. If the Earth revolves around the sun, it constantly rotates around the sun. And our moon, Earth's moon, revolves around the Earth. Even the Earth itself revolves around a single axis point here on Earth. So with that selected, we're just going to select, and that is how much it wraps. So this kind of makes more sense now. You can see it's almost like a cylinder went from a square into a cylinder. You can change how much it revolves around. If you don't want it to complete revolve, the 360 degrees, you can select how much it twists. It really gets funky when you do this. You make some really strange shapes. Of it again. You want it to kind of look like a staircase. Now you can see this is going to be hard for your computer. How much offset, meaning how far away do you want this to be? This is pretty cool. There's some other options down here as well. Again, rotating it into different directions if you want to do that. And then the last option here is called inflate. So if we select that, notice the little icon is a balloon. It's like inflate, adding some three-dimensional feature to it. And you can kind of see it just kind of blows it up, just like it says here. You can add some depth. You can add some volume to this. If you want this to be blown up a little bit more, you can inflate both sides. Now you can't see both sides because we just have this straight on. But if we change this from like a preset to the isometric right, it's going to kind of go on a slight angle here. And if we hit inflate both, so I'll do it to both sides here. Almost looks like a big pillow. You can up your depth a little bit more. And it's going to do almost what extrude does, but extrude keeps these sharp corners and does not. It inflates it. There's also things up here like material that you can change. There's preset materials, a whole bunch of really cool options for this. And this is really going to make your computer think over time, by adding some of these different materials in. There's different lighting effects that you can do. You can also add graphics to it. So you can add things here, so it kind of wraps it around. So I give this like little sand material, but then I add graphic, and I'm sure you can kind of play with that graphic some more to scale this graphic up or down or place it. There's a lot of awesome things you can do with the 3D materials here, but that's going to definitely make your work over time. So let's go over and kind of change some of these things. I have just a little demo down here of inflating this basketball. So a flat 2D picture that a lot of you in Illustrator, it wouldn't look anything crazy, but I'm going to select that, and now we're going to go to the Object tab if you switched over to any of these other ones, and let's in this. And before we go too far, I already did this tutorial for you, and I screenshots over here just to kind of help us. So as far as inflating it goes, we are going to set the depth to 0.01. It's 0.01. And we're going to leave this other stuff alone. So the twist is at 0 degrees. And volume, we'll just leave them at 100. As far as the presets down here, the rotation, we'll just leave. Okay, now we're going to switch over to the materials. And you can see I'm just using the basic material. So I'm going to use the default option. I'm going to change its roughness to 0.5, its metallic to 0.2, a little bit more. You can see the next section here is my lighting. I'll change to the lighting. There's a lot of different presets. You see there's standard, diffuse, top left or right. We're going to do a kind of a cut one. So we're going to set the intensity to 100, 90 degrees sideways. The height is going to be 45. The softness will change to 90. The intensity will keep at 50. If we scroll down a little bit more, there's an option here for shadows will activate, so we'll add shadows. We can scroll down even more. We want this to behind, so behind object, not below object. The distance is going to be 20%, and the shadow bounds is going to be 200%. Now, if you scroll back over to see what you did, we click off, kind of render that. Now, when I did this before, it looked a little bit different than that, so it's kind of interesting this turned out like that. I think it's more of the shadow effect itself. Maybe I typed in a number wrong somewhere. But you can see that we went from this flat one to kind of this three-dimensional one. And how my computer is currently rendering, it looks a little fakey. So maybe we want to select that, and there's a panel up here. It's kind of like rendering options. Maybe you want to check that. And this definitely makes your computer work overkill here. So you might want to maybe save it beforehand. But if you turn on this ray tracing, you can change the quality of it to medium or high, and that might have something to do with it. Then we hit render. Might take a little bit for your computer to think through. Rendering is kind of reading and processing a three-dimensional picture for you, or a higher quality picture. That's kind of what mine looked like before. So maybe it was this ray tracing was turned off to make your computer run a little bit faster. But as you can see, the 3D materials create a lot of awesome things out of very simple shapes in a very short amount of time. Just the before and after makes something very realistic looking and a lot cooler than would if it was just flat like this.